MrTransforce96 here with another video review. This time we have a Build-A-Figure review, and it's going to be Vulture's wings from Spider-Man Homecoming. So the Build-A-Figure of this wave, of course, is just the wings, not quite the Vulture figure. I've made a separate review of the figure himself, so I might touch on the figure a bit, but mainly this review is going to be on the wings themselves. How I feel about the wings as the Build-A-Figure, just starting out right there, I'm not a big fan of it. I think that it's not a good Build-A-Figure in my opinion. You need to buy 7 figures to build the wings, and I just don't think that they're worth it from a quality standpoint. You know, they are very large, but they're paper thin, so it's not like you're getting a ton of plastic here. These things definitely weigh much less than your average kind of, larger scaled Build-A-Figure character, and I'm just not a big fan of it, especially since there was such an easy way of fixing it. Just having the Vulture figure himself be included with the wings would have made for a perfectly good Build-A-Figure. That would be perfectly fine. I'd be completely happy with that. In my opinion, the way that this could have been fixed is just replace the Vulture figure of the wave with just another character. So you still need to buy 7 figures to build the Build-A-Figure, but then just have each figure in the wave come with a piece of the wings and a piece of the figure himself. And that's just an easy fix to make this Build-A-Figure worth it and to qualify it as a good Build-A-Figure, value for money. Of course, it gets even worse in the Guardians of the Galaxy wave with Mantis as the Build-A-Figure. But overall, so I'm not a big fan of this as the Build-A-Figure. Just want to start out there. But now let's get into the actual wings themselves as far as their sculpt and how they articulate and how they fit onto the Vulture figure himself. Alright, so here's the back span of the wings. The wings span about 23 inches from the longest point to the longest point. That is quite a nice span, definitely. As far as the breakdown of these wings, you get this middle section plus the little stabilizing piece. You get that with one figure. You get each of these propellers with a figure. You get each of the middle sections with a figure, and then you get each of the ends with a figure. I think the propellers are pretty small, and could have easily been attached to the middle pieces if they wanted to. So I think that is a bit of a cop-out. As far as the size, though, I think that it's accurate. I mean, these are very big, and from what we see in the movie, particularly, I haven't seen the movie yet, actually. I'm seeing it tonight at the time of filming this, which is Wednesday. From what we see in the trailer when he's putting on the wings are flying towards him, he's kind of stretching his arms. This looks like it's about the span of that, so I do think that it is accurate, which is quite nice. Going over the detailing on the wings, it's alright. The detail itself is pretty nicely sculpted, but it is not perfectly executed. The gray is this kind of dark gray that has a bit of a speckling effect, makes it look more like metal, which I definitely like a lot. It's not just, straight up gray or straight up black or anything like that. So that is very nice. The green itself is painted on, I like the shade of green, it's a nice kind of light olive green, but it has some issues. There's some quality specks all, throughout it, unfortunately, which is definitely a shame. The way that they've kind of lit up the bottom, I'm not 100% sure if that's accurate. I assume it is. But it's done in a kind of a neat way. I do like the way that they kind of sprayed it out so it looks like it's illuminating further. My only issue is that it kind of gets to the edges here, which is annoying because obviously it shouldn't, but it's obviously been sprayed at this direction, and the edge of it has hit the sides, which is definitely disappointing. The detail, though, on the wings is nice. I do like all the little mechanical pieces and everything even in between the green is all sculpted very nicely. And then I do like how straight these wings are, these feathers, if you will. I think that they look very nice, and they're all completely straight. None of them are out of place, which is something that is usually kind of a concern for Marvel Legends, considering they don't always use a really hard plastic. So, but this time the wings are completely hard plastic, which is very nice. As far as these propeller pieces, they do have articulation. They obviously they can hinge out. And then the blades themselves are on a hinge there, so they can spin, and then the blades inside of that can spin as well. So you do have articulation there. I wish that there was more articulation, though. From what we see in the trailers, these propeller pieces really do move a lot, and they even go up. So I wish that they hinged up as well. That would be pretty cool, because otherwise there's kind of no point of them moving. There's no pose where I'm like, ooh, let me put these here. That looks perfect. I always just have them here because whereas without it, you just have like big gaps in his wings. And if you wanted to, you could essentially build this Build-A-Figure without buying Tombstone or Beetle, and just leave these blank, because I mean it'll just look like this, which is still pretty good. It's there is something missing, but it's not bad at all. So if you did want to save the $40 because you had no interest in those two figures, you could do that, and it would be perfectly fine. And that would definitely make the Build-A-Figure a little bit more value for money, I'd say. The way that it articulates is my least favorite part of this figure. It's all just on very simple joints, which I hate. It's just the joints that are like a hexagon kind of style joint there with a little clip. So basically, if you move it like one clip, it's just because it's gone onto the other side of the peg. And it's not ratchet, which is such a shame, because these do have the, like there, it fell, You can have it in one place, and then if you move it, it'll fall down. Extremely annoying, and such a simple fix. I mean, just giving it like a real joint and not some flimsy little peg piece would have taken care of that completely. It's the same thing with the joints right here. Right here, same. It works the same way. Now here, it doesn't really matter because these little pieces aren't heavy at all, so that type of joint will actually hold it. But for these pieces are very heavy, and therefore when you move them, gravity will take over. And his wings are just heavy enough in general that if you move him forward, even with the base there, he'll still definitely fall forward. So you do have to do a lot to kind of get him in a good position, and it feels very flimsy. It's hard to move because you're worried that it's going to be just kind of fall back into the gravity's place, which is very annoying. The only ones that actually work nicely are these hinges up here. They're on a much stronger joint, and they can actually withstand the position that you put them in. So you can kind of bend them down, which is kind of neat. I think that it looks better if it's straight, but still it is nice that you can do that, and it adds for a little extra articulation. It looks like he can kind of use these wings somewhat as like Dr. Octopus uses his tentacles in some capacity, because we do see him obviously pick up the homemade Spider-Man suit with one of his wings, and it's being kind of controlled by his arms. So I do like the fact that the wings have articulation so that you can kind of do stuff like that. However, it's just not done well. I mean, it's such an easy fix too. That's the big issue. And then just brief thoughts about the figure himself, because I have already made a review of it. I really do like the figure as far as it's sculpted, the sculpting concerned. I think it's very nice. I like the paint that's been used. I'm not a big fan of some of the way that it articulates. The knees don't go nearly far enough, and the thighs are hindered a bit more than I would have liked, especially since I'd like to put his feet up, into like aggressive positions where he's like trying to come down and catch Spider-Man, things like that, and you really can't achieve too many great ones with his leg articulation, which is a shame. I think that the feet, the nails on the feet are definitely not close to being aggressive enough from what we see in the actual movie. In the movie, the toes and the back piece is pretty long on this figure, but the front toes aren't long enough. They need to be longer, and I think that it would have been absolutely necessary to give us hinges on those toes as well, because they obviously do hinge in the movie. And then as far as accessories for him, he's missing two accessories. One is that, again, I haven't seen the movie quite yet, so I don't know exactly what it is, but the weapon that he kind of holds with two hands that shoots like an energy blast, and it tears the ship in half. That accessory, we've seen him on a banner holding that. It does seem to be like a big weapon of his in the movie, so I think that would have been necessary. And then, of course, a Michael Keaton, Adrian Toomes head sculpt is 100% necessary. There could be some issue with a license concern with that head sculpt, and therefore I'm not going to ding Hasbro too bad on that. However, if there is no issue as far as the license is concerned, that I definitely would have needed on this figure, and I think that it's atrocious that we don't have it, especially since I don't think that the wings are a big enough piece to consider a Build-A-Figure. So again, just, this figure leaves a lot to be desired. A better set of articulation on the wings themselves, some higher quality paint apps, because on the front, you do have a lot of little pieces that are kind of messed up on the green spaces as well. So just higher quality of paint apps, better ways of articulation, better joints, more articulation on the Vulture figure himself, his weapon, and his alternative head sculpt are all missing from this figure, and all of them are extremely important as well, I'd say. So there you go, that's my review of this Build-A-Figure. I still really like it just because I'm a big, Marvel villains fan, particularly movie villains, and they're very underrepresented in toys in general, especially Marvel Legends. This is the first year that Hasbro is actually making most, if not all, of the villains from the MCU movies, which is very cool. But again, we don't get them too often, so to get one is very nice, especially since this one I didn't really expect to get because he has such, a massive piece to him. I think that this figure would have been completely fixed had they added the extra quality concerns, had they fixed the quality concerns, and had they given us the extra accessories. This would have been worth it. Or had they just made the Build-A-Figure be the wings and the figure himself, that would have made it more worth it as well. But without doing that, this figure does feel not great. Now, the wave itself is so strong that this does feel like a bonus instead of the reason to buy the wave. So that is definitely something that is quite nice. But I'm very excited to see Vulture in action in this movie. I can't wait for the character, and I am very happy to have this figure in my collection. So let me know what you guys think of my thoughts, and what are your thoughts on the Vulture figure himself and his Build-A-Figure wings. And thanks so much for watching.